Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you like my silly little intro for this map. Welcome to the one we've all been waiting for such a long time, the first proper urban-based map for WARNO. Obviously, it is the focal point. There are some more open areas on it, but it follows the new formatting that we've seen on Airport. The spacing of the buildings a little bit more natural in some cases, and it has the spacing that allows vehicles to interact. There's a balance element to this. It's not just building to building fighting all the way across. This has been a massive task for UGen to get this working properly. They were having lots of issues with performance and things like that, but they got there in the end, and this is the first of hopefully multiple urban based maps that we're going to get from them. So kudos to the team. We've had chance to try this before. It is fantastic to play on. The actual map itself has so many options. It's a very well thought out map. The intention, I think, is 2v2 or 3v3. There's plenty of room on this map. 2v2, definitely, we've played it as that. I wonder if you could play it as 3v3 as well. I'm not sure. Certainly for 2v2 though, absolutely outstanding. Let's have a little look at this map in a bit more detail. So you have this huge big main road running down here, the Autobahn, as it would be in Germany. It runs directly sort of down the middle, slightly over to one side, and kind of splits a bit like a river would the two sides of the map. Unlike the previous maps we've seen, namely Twin Cities, this is flat. You'll notice the road is flat with the terrain. It's not in a ditch. So here you'll be, accessible to enemy fire from various buildings around the place. Obviously, there are huge buildings. There are small buildings. If we have a look at this side of the map first, because this side is really fun. So you've got the situation where you can actually get round the back behind the enemy lines using these side roads. There's a couple of roads there, and each side of the map sort of has a defensive line here. And, people will forget about this. They won't defend it, and you'll be able to get around the back. I've seen people push round, and obviously both of these are roads then coming from the side of the map going into Echo and Delta respectively. A little bit closer to Echo, these buildings sort of finish here with a tree line, and then you've got easy access to the Echo buildings, and up here you've got similar situation, a little bit more of a gap here, but easy enough if you get around the back down these roads to move up through the buildings and get into the point from the side. And obviously all of this allows you to cut off these reinforcement roads as well here, and potentially this one down here if you can get your vehicles into this tree line perhaps, or your ATGMs, whatever the case may be. You have various small buildings, groups of houses. It's these new blocks of buildings, but then of course you do have in this area these large high-rise buildings which give you a better line of sight, and these are paramount for holding this area of the map. They give a fantastic line of sight, as we can see if I hold the mouse over them. They also allow for obviously long-range ATGMs to have a fantastic range, and again, line of sight. You can see how far they see, even over onto this main Autobahn or the main road running down the map here. There's interspaced industrial sort of areas between the houses as well. So you have, let's call them shopping areas or factories and things like that, interspaced with all of the houses around it. I think it's a really nice setup here. Over on the other side of this main road, we have a much bigger sort of build-up of houses. It's less industrial, less huge high-rise buildings. There's a few, but this feels more like your general suburban area. You've still got some industrial buildings which will be shopping areas and stuff like that, and this is a huge area in the middle. There isn't actually any points here, so you've got to make a decision whether you're going to defend it or risk people getting around the back. Obviously there are some big buildings dotted around here as well, groups of in this case, so that's one of the new groupings of buildings, even some of the tower blocks there. You've got this lovely one in the middle that's going to give a fantastic line of sight if you can get into it. Obviously plenty of buildings around it to shoot into it as well. And over at this side of the map, you have some more points. The points here, obviously, a little bit bigger than the other side, a little bit wider. You've got buildings at both sides, sort of at the edges, in the middle, so both sides are able to push in and hold an area if you manage to make it that far. Interspersed buildings throughout the center with roads moving up, and then up here we also have various buildings on either side. So there's no one player or one side of this map that can't get into these points via little buildings at the edge, because there are some maps the balance isn't great, where there are little bushes or there are little buildings at one side that the other side doesn't get, and obviously it's a big advantage to the side that gets them when you can't see the CV when it's hidden. Here, everyone's in the same boat. You've all got little buildings, little bushes, or something to hide in at each side. This side of the map, again, very interesting layout. Lots of these little lakes or ponds, whatever you want to call them. You've got these roads that crisscross over this area. Plenty of opportunity to get around the back. Loads of little bushes and tree lines so you can get your ATGMs in there. Maybe you want to put some anti-tank guns in there to catch any units that come around. A couple of man pads or some anti-air. You also have the odd little building interspersed in these areas as well. But just, it's really, really nice to look at. It's fantastic to play. The spacing of the buildings is superb. I mean, I cannot fault the team. They have obviously worked very hard, the map team at UGen. They're very responsive when you chat to them as well. And obviously, we get to give feedback on these maps. And they take it all on board. They give sensible responses to our comments. So kudos to them. They're really good at responding to feedback as well. And you'll notice that with some of the newer maps, they've sort of taken on board what the pro players have said needs adjusting for 1v1 maps and things like that. But the spacing here is superb. And when you get to play it yourselves, hopefully early next week, once they've solved any little last issues, you'll get to actually see this for yourself. But as you can see, the spaces between the buildings, they offer that option of utilizing IFVs, tanks, things like that to offer fire support while not literally driving them building to building and getting them blown up really easily. It means that you're not going to be massively overwhelmed by nothing but infantry spam. It means other divisions can succeed on this map, where on some maps where it's just wall-to-wall buildings, they maybe would fail in those areas. But here, it's just a much better spacing. Other than that, very similar to the maps we've had before. Perhaps one of the big things to note here is it's very flat. I think there's a lot of maps we get at the moment, or we've had, that have hills on. But you'll notice here, everything is completely flat. This is a flat map. It means you're not going to get stuck behind hills and things and have weird lines of sight generally. It's going to be very flat. You're going to be just worrying about the buildings, worrying about the tree lines, things like that. But yeah, absolutely superb. And obviously, as you can see, I'm whizzing around with the controller here, and I've sped up a bit just to demonstrate. I'm running this on ultra settings, or whatever the setting is, and it runs nice and smoothly. You know, and a big concern for the UGen team were buildings and how much that messed with the CPU usage and things of the game. But yeah, they've managed to make the adjustments they needed to, and it runs really smoothly. So kudos to them, because I think it's been a real struggle at their side to get it running that smoothly. But we are there, and hopefully this is the first of many more cool new maps to come. But there you go. I thought I'd give you a little bit of a preview. If you'd like to see it in action, some of us will be streaming it tonight and potentially over the weekend, having some games either versus each other or versus the AI, depending on how many people we can muster together. But yeah, I hope you all come along and get to see it in action. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all soon.